Hello, YouTube. Born to be Wild NE here. And as always, NE stands for Nebraska. Go Big Red Yay Huskers. Just a short vid to add to my political and social commentary playlist. Not interested? Please don't watch, don't listen. This one should be fairly nonpartisan, however. Over the decades, frustration among the citizenry in America has grown and grown and grown. We feel helpless that our Congress doesn't seem to do anything to solve the nation's problems. We feel frustrated that oftentimes when Congress does act, it does not seem like they have the best interests of the majority of Americans in their heads, in their actions. And we feel angry because so many of them use propaganda spin messages to try to get we normal people to believe that what they're doing is for us, for the betterment of we normal folks. And then we start fighting amongst each other, saying, it's this darn party, or it's that darn party, or it's this left philosophy, or it's this right philosophy, etc., etc. Or we divide ourselves among, very emotional issues, oftentimes social issues, which people on both sides of the issues, or really on all sides of the issues, feel very deeply about, and thus makes those issues very divisive. A few years ago, I listened to a book. The main title was Republic Lost. There was a subtitle that I don't remember. But it was about how our systems of electing and governing have been systemically corrupted by a dependency by candidates for office upon big money. It started out with the premise that the stats at that time showed that over 90% of the time the candidate for federal office that spent the most won. And that sort of naturally sets up candidates who want to try to win with the motivation to raise lots of money. And it's easier to raise that money in big chunks than in lots and lots of little pieces, normally. So, once the winning candidate gets in office, they hesitate to alienate their big money donors who helped put them in office in the first place. Quite naturally, those candidates shy away from taking positions, making statements, introducing legislation or voting for legislation that they understand would upset those big donors. So quite naturally, the agenda of the donors gets heavier weight in the office holder's mind than what the agenda it might be best for the larger parts of the country. Might be. So there you go. There was no quid pro quo corruption. There was a systemic corruption. The process drives candidates to raise lots and lots of money, and then to not want to alienate their big money donors so that they'll be around when they want to run for re-election. So think that through, because that's been growing for decades and decades, and the influence of big money has been growing for decades and decades. Might that not be the real reason for why we normal folk feel helpless and frustrated, and in that helplessness and frustration let ourselves become emotional and concentrate on our divisions rather than coming together to focus on requiring our members of Congress to find a way to enact effective campaign finance reform and effective lobbying reform. In my mind, this is a process issue. It's not a partisan issue. I think that no matter where a person is on the political spectrum, they're feeling pretty frustrated and helpless. This has been studied many times over decades, and yet no one has found a way to make it happen. The Robert SCOTUS ruled in the Citizens United case, and that case gave the sources of big money even more power to influence more heavily. Not too long after that Supreme Court decision, the Roberts Supreme Court also overturned some decades and decades long-standing campaign finance reform or laws in the state of Montana. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to argue or even attempt to argue legality of one way or another for those decisions. But those decisions hurt our country greatly. I don't know, it seems to me pretty much common sense that money's not free speech and corporations are not people when it comes to doling out free speech rights. Obviously, that's not how Roberts and his Supreme Court ruled. So I'll wind it down. I just wanted to plant that seed for those of you interested in thinking about that. Say, you know, a lot of us are at each other's throats, but are we missing the true root cause of much of our situation and the problems we have? And if we're missing the true root cause and we're not defining the problem correctly, how in the world will we ever have a chance to solve that problem? Feel free to comment below. As always, I request that we do so, and we differ, and we debate, and we argue our own points of view and the reasons behind those points of view, but to do so with civility and while maintaining mutual respect for each other as fellow citizens and fellow human beings. That's another problem we have in much of America. We're calling each other names. We're, just not even attempting to listen to each other. And little progress will be made if that continues. So share your thoughts, share your comments. I ask that you do it civilly and while being respectful to all sides and all perspectives and the people behind them. Obviously, I can't force you to be respectful. This is on the honor system. Let's all start modeling, a different way of disagreeing. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different opinions. Where we can cross the line is when we start putting down, personally attacking, demeaning, calling each other names, etc., 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 in my opinion. Hey, thanks for watching and listening to this point. Take care, everybody. Bye.